Okay, so we've got a fifth one.
Quorum achievement unlocked.
So you know, you have a somewhat higher than a quorum threshold than many churches have. So I forget what it is. It's like 30, 40%.
33%.
Okay. Yeah, and a lot of them are like even like 15 or 20. So you're doing very well. Because you always do, because you're better than other congregations. And I don't mean it quite that way, but I do kind of. So I am going to relight our chalice for this meeting with these words by the Reverend Linda Hart and added to by me. We gather today to take up the business of this congregation. We come to discuss important matters. Who shall lead us? How shall we spend our money? Details, small and large, stick to the larger ones if you possibly can, that guide how we shall be together. We do this in order to do the work of the congregation. The work of the congregation, that is, finding the lost, lifting up those in sorrow, offering companionship and caring for one another, making the world we dream of be that much more possible. And so, in this meeting, may all be kind in speaking, thoughtful in deliberation, never straying from the love that binds this community together, remembering that this faith is a covenantal, not a creedal faith. We gather around how we want to be together. That, and when passionate people who love this place get together, there can be passion in the room, yay. Passion and not conflict, if possible, not contention, and again, kind, thoughtful, and bound together in love that holds us all. In this spirit, I relight our chalice this morning.
Good afternoon. I'm Gina Norstedt, the board president. I would like to thank each and every one of you for coming here today and spending your time here with us. I would like to thank everyone who's logged on to Zoom and everyone who has already done an absentee ballot or has left one. Thank you. All of us are smarter than any one of us. We cannot do this alone. Things have changed since the report I wrote that was in the annual packet. As most of you know, we don't have an interim minister lined up. There is a lot in flux. We're all doing what we can with what we have, where we are. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. Please ask questions, talk to us, have a discussion on Zoom as well, if you can. Have questions. And thank you. I'm sure we all have better things to do with our time than to sit here. Everyone is doing the most important thing they can do right here, right now. Thank you. You all rock. So, Mr. Don, Secretary. We have a quorum, correct? Yes. Thank you. See my agenda here. So, procedures for voting for members in good standing. Here in the sanctuary, raise your hand. On Zoom, there are buttons to push and set up. Do we need to check that? And then we have some that were done absentee. Any questions? You guys rock. Thank you. First order of business, approval of the annual minutes from last year's annual meeting on June 9th, 2024. Sue Brinkmeyer, motions and approval. Ruth Owens seconds it. Any discussion? Shall we move to vote? All those in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? We'll wait. We'll wait for the online as well.
Okay, we've got 3 votes.
So for number 1, we have 3 of 3. For number 2, we
We're-
have,
We're just
I'm
on the approval of last year's minutes right now.
Right.
yes.
So what's number 2?
So number 2
If you
is,
have a second person on the same screen.
Oh, so just tell the total number.
Yeah, okay, so,
Yes.
2 of 4.
okay, so we have 6 people. It's
are
all in
yes.
favor. It's unanimous with 6 votes cast.
Say that out loud.
It's unanimous, 6 votes total. Yes.
Okay. So that was unanimous online for approval of the minutes. Last year's minutes have passed. 1 down. For discussion of the proposed budget,
I guess I should
I'd like to
share
invite
results.
Joe Osborne up here.
Because that's probably, I'm going to get to the next one.
Thank you, Gina. I'm Joe Osborne, the Treasurer of UUCV, and we're going to present the budget. Can I have a screen? Here we are. Okay. Before I go into the numbers, one thing that I wanted to just make a statement on is the service we just had this morning was the most wonderful service I think I've ever seen, and it really encapsulates who we are as UUs. It's just wonderful to see the community and love come together in that flower community service. It was just spectacular. I just had to say that. Okay, supporting the mission, the 2025-26 budget. Next slide. Okay, serving our mission into the future. The proposed budget reflects long-term optimism, expectation of growth. Ministry teams and activities are fully funded as requested by their leaders. Activities are reinvigorated. New members are joining. There were 21 new members joining this year. So keep working. Yeah. Have fun together. Join committees, ministries, teams. I'm going to throw teams in there too. Invite friends. Really, we can use the volunteers in this church for sure. Next slide. So this is the income side of the house. And looking at the pledge income for the new budget is $323,000. That hasn't changed since the conversation I had with everyone a month ago. That number hasn't changed. It's $31,000 less than last year's budget. Looking at other income, which is rent, auction, investments, $47,110. At least half of that is the auction. So our total income was $370,110. That's how much we expect to come in. Next slide. This is the proposed operating expense budget. And you see staffing, a proposed budget of $350,000, building and administration $78,852, program expenses $24,459, for a total of operating expenses of $453,940. So the deficit at that point is $83,830. Next slide. So we look at the major maintenance reserves. We're not going to be doing a sabbatical minister set aside. UUA program fund, looks like we're estimating it'll be $25,622. No matching from the legacy fund, no grants. And in the detail of the budget, we're not expecting, I've got zero that I'm holding for gains from our investments because nobody knows where the heck they're going. So the proposed budget bottom line is a negative $111,952. Now, if you were here for the conversation, that negative was 132. It's now 111, and people say, well, what the heck happened? Well, we took a look at, if you remember, when I did the conversation, I think 2 days or 3 days before Carolyn Bierke announced she was leaving. So I certainly couldn't have made that change in that budget. So in meeting with the board, one of the things we decided to do to start to move towards maybe more of a realistic situation is we removed 3 months of music director. So we cut that down, that budget down to 9 months. It's still a good piece of change, but we figured we wouldn't be able to do anything for the next 3 months. On the interim minister, which by the way has changed because we don't have an interim minister, we're now looking at a contract minister. We reduced the budget to 11 months because we didn't believe, and it's probably true, we weren't going to get a minister for July 1st. So those changes alone reduced the budget by $21,000. So that's why that reduction is there. Now, a few other things that I wanted to bring up. As you saw, the income side, we've got significantly less money expected to come in this year. We have the uncertainty of the future with Reverend Dana's retirement and Carolyn Bierke leaving and not knowing how we're going to fill those, or if we're going to fill those positions. It's just a whole big unknown. And as I mentioned at the conversation a month ago, I presented a budget with a $132,000 negative. That's now cut back to $111,000 due to the things I just mentioned. One of the things I took a look at was pledge actual income history. So in June of 2020, which is the last month of the 2019-2020 budget, and was really only impacted by the pandemic for like a couple of months, okay? Our pledge income was $403,540.09. In June of 2024, which is the last full year that we have on record, our pledge income dropped to $313,836.97. That's an $89,803 difference, almost $90,000 less in income. So when we look at where we are today, you know, we still haven't recovered from the pandemic. It's just not financially. It's just not there. Now, some other things that I wanted to talk about, and that is visibility. I know that I've been posting the spreadsheets, if you will, from the reports we get. I put them out in the hallway. It's really come to our attention that, yeah, you know, spreadsheets are great for me and Ron Dallas, okay? but for most of the public, it's like just a bunch of numbers, and I get that, okay? So here's some of the things we're going to be doing. So one piece of information that was asked about was, what's the distribution of our pledges? What does that look like? Okay, now this isn't, you can't tell anything specifically by family or anything with this, but here's a chart that I actually published last October that shows the distribution of the pledges for last year. Actually, no, for this year. This was the pledges, not the actual income, but this is the pledges that people had given us. So I'm going to post this. Ah, all right. So, on the bottom line, you have the amount of pledge, and it's like less than $500, less than $1,000, and these are annual. All right. All right. So the bottom line shows groupings by, for instance, less than $500, less than $1,000, less than $1,500, and these are annual numbers. Okay, these are annual numbers. Over here, this is pledging units. It's not members, it's pledging units, because a lot of folks have a husband and wife and they pledge with there's one pledge. So we just counted pledging units. So you can see by the distribution, the large amount of, yeah, I know. This would be better when I guess at least put up. This is the area where we get most of our pledging done. It's from $2,000 down. And the average pledge we need is to run the church at the current rate is like $2,000 a person. So we're not there, okay? We're not there. So this is one thing we're going to be doing. I'm going to put this up so that people can, combine and take a look at it when they desire. The other chart that we're going to be posting is pledge income versus pledge received. So this is through the end of April. This is what we've received, and this is what the budget was looking for. Now, just so we don't go off a deep rail, in May and June, there are some manuals that come in. So the gap will be closed a bit, but take my word for it, we're not closing that whole gap. That's not going to happen. So this is the kind of representation, graphical representation, we're going to start publishing on a monthly basis in the hallway so that people don't have to read tiny numbers on a spreadsheet, but they can get an idea of where we are, whether it be pledge income, expenses. I was just talking to Ron Dallas. He's got some ideas about how to do bar graphs to show things graphically that would be important to us. So we're going to go down that road. We're going to become more visible, more timely in our reporting back to the congregation. Now, as I said back at the conversation, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, we all know what the definition of that is, okay? So Gina's going to come up. We're going to talk about, the Finance Committee has met. We talked this over with the board. And Gina's going to talk about what I call the way forward. Where do we go from here? So Gina?
Thank you. Hopefully I won't start coughing up a lung. So even before we publish this budget, the board meetings and the last finance committee, this is not sustainable. We good, pretty large budget deficit for a number of years now. We can't continue to do that. But there's a lot that we don't know. We don't know who our next minister is going to be, when they're going to start. We don't know what we're going to do for music, how that will look. So the budget is a plan, not a prescription. We take what we know, we make a guess, and we go from there. This year especially, with all the uncertainty, there's a lot we don't know. So what we'd like to do is present this as a provisional budget and then look at it again in the fall. We should know more then, hopefully, about our minister. We can look at what we need for music. Do we need a part-time, half-time music director? Do we need somebody who just comes and plays on Sunday? Those are all questions we don't know the answer to yet. We'd like to assemble a team of people to look at our budget overall, expenses, but we can't close this only looking at expenses. Income as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who has turned in a pledge and is pledging what they can. And if you can pledge a little bit more, now would be the time. So, sure we have questions? We'd like to have conversations over the next few months with the conversation, with a team, looking at what we can do. We have a microphone here. If you'd like it run to you, Jim, or do you want to be the microphone runner? I'll let y'all fight for it. There, okay, you win. So.
I'll ask the first. The light is
There.
flashing, Brian. Okay. My first question is, do you want everybody to have the mic run to them, or if people are willing to come and speak at the front, to have them come to the front?
We're getting responses that say run, so, and if there's responses online, please type them in. Brian, please let me know when you have a response and we can read it out.
Will do.
Ruth?
Okay, Ruth Owens. So the question that I ask, and I ask this every single year. So I love what you guys are talking about. And will any of this balance the budget? And what is the plan to actually get us to a real balanced budget? Because what I know you're talking about, it's very likely we're not going to save that much on the minister once we get her on board. It's likely we're going to not save that much on that, on a music director. I mean, we're ending the year, if I understand this, with $126,000 that's going to have to come out of our savings to cover the budget.
I'm not a numbers person, hence the graphs.
Okay, based on what I'm seeing, the actual current year's actuals is $126,000 in the red.
You can't look at the current year's actuals. That was
Well,
done.
that's what confuses me
I
every
know.
year.
What you have to look at for the next budget, that's the old budget. For the next budget, right now, we're looking at $111,952.
That's this year's budget. That's
Okay.
we're ending the year with $126,000 deficit is what I'm reading that to say.
Yes, and that year will end June 30th. We
And-
can't change that.
Right, but we have spent $126,000 more than we brought in, which means we have to take $126,000 from our savings, our investments to cover that cost. Now we're looking at next,
Right.
Mike's cutting in and out. I do realize that that number adjusts and goes down sometimes, but we're still looking at $100,000 more. That's that's 2/3 of what we've got in savings right now. I've been on finance. I mean, what I understand,
No, we've got, as I reported back in May, looking at the end of March stats, we had $338,000 of non-attached reserves.
so we're looking at 200, and right now,
No,
just looking at the
the
numbers.
126 is over, that's water over the dam.
No, Joe, I understand that, but that money came from somewhere.
Well, yeah, it came out of our reserves. But
Right.
even with all of that,
So after we cover this 126, we
it's,
still have
it's
330,000.
pretty much covered, yeah. Exactly. So we have, look at it this way, you probably have about a third, okay, for next year.
Okay,
This is why we're saying this is not sustainable,
right.
okay?
And okay, so my comment is, I hear what we're saying. I never hear how we are going to make it sustainable.
And
That's
that is
what
what we're going to be working on for the next 3 months.
Okay.
is
That's what we
trying to get it
talked
as
about
close to
last
that.
year, and I don't know that anything happened
Right.
on it. So anyway, that's my concern. I'm going to have to vote
Sure.
no on the budget, so anyway.
Bob Newman was next. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then it's a tie between you and,
So I guess I'm pretty naive, but I wasn't aware that so few people pay their pledges, or a lot of people don't. So is that,
That's a problem.
of course, but so is it routinely figured into our budget? I mean, that we don't look at the actual pledge number, we look at what is it about, 1/4 of?
Now, here's what we look at. First of all, we've got pledge cards. That's the first thing we look at. And not everybody turns in a pledge card. So then we look at who's been continually paying their pledges. And then we would add those in to get to our final pledge number. If someone hasn't been paying their pledge, we don't factor that into the budget for the following
Okay.
year.
But you still come out way high. with your-
Because those people that we figured would continue or had filled out a pledge card, for whatever reason, have stopped pledging.
Yeah, so can't you just take a % of pledge cards, since that's what it really is? I don't know if it's a half or a quarter or what that,
Well, okay, that would affect the plan maybe,
yeah.
but it doesn't affect the reality of what comes in the door. So,
No, but
yeah.
it would,
I mean, I could make you
Make
feel,
us
I
more
could make you
prepared
feel
for it.
better.
no, it would mean that our budget would be more honest.
No, it's not more honest.
I think,
Go ahead.
because the honesty is that a lot of people don't pay.
Yeah, and I do want to come in and give some bigger picture things about this. The lack of paying is new. It's been something that may have been growing a little bit more over the last couple of years, but this is the most dramatic I have seen it in 9
I
years.
see,
Okay, so that is not something, it's not been dishonest budgets. It hasn't.
Well, not accurate, but maybe it was unpredictable, so.
Well, because they're always unpredictable. But here's also just some bigger picture stuff to put into this. So this is post-pandemic stuff. And a lot of congregations did not have the level of reserves that this congregation had. A lot of people did not necessarily take advantage of the of all of the federal programs. And so I'm not answering you directly. I'm speaking to the general thing, just so you know. There were lots of federal programs. This congregation delayed some of these hard questions by 2 or 3 years. There were congregations who, right after the pandemic, were facing situations that were dire and did not have the resources that this congregation had. And there have been plans, there have been at least 2 different plans to increase pledging. They haven't worked. It's not that people have just been saying, oh, we'll just, pull in from various things. And not worry about this. And I'm getting if I sound a little defensive, it's because I probably am a little defensive. There was an effort to leverage the legacy funds to increase actually some of the people at the lower end, to get people to increase their pledges as they can. There's no pledge shaming going on here. If you're feeling it, it's because, wow, money is hard to talk about. And so that idea, we're going to do a 3-year match, it worked the first year. It was cool. And it worked less well in year 2 and year 3, which was this year. And then we also, because the church, you have these legacy funds, some of okay, and up until this year, maybe last year, honestly, this congregation, since I have been here, has passed deficit budgets. You don't need to pass an absolute assured totally balanced budget, though this isn't sustainable, absolutely. But every year it's passed deficit budgets, and in almost every year, we've actually come out ahead. Until this year, maybe last year. And we're still working on some plans to increase that, so to look at pledging. And then in the last 2 years, next year would be the third, we did an every member canvas, and dividing it into 3. A third of the congregation is invited to have a face-to-face conversation about pledging, which is the most effective way of doing fundraising. It's also very time-intensive for people. So that actually worked in the first year of it. This year, it didn't work. So now, given a whole number of things coming together, this is the, and so there was a deficit budget last year. It's been significantly higher so far than it was, than was passed last year. And it was passed last year with the expectation that it would be less than it is, because it almost always is less, and it's actually significantly more. So that's the first thing that is happening, that is just coming into the fullness of the awareness of leadership and to you guys in the last 2 to 3 months. We didn't know these things weren't going to work until they didn't this spring. And then this spring, there's been all kinds of other things going on. So, the idea that the defensiveness that I started to feel was like there's dishonest budgets or those kinds of things. Not so. The circumstances are playing out as they are playing out. And it's all been complicated. Oh man, I had something on my Facebook that I wanted to read to you, and it disappeared. So I'll find it again and I'll read it later. And so, yes, you are facing really, really, well, that level of deficit is dire. There is money in to cover it, but you don't want to spend it that way. And it's not what the legacy funds were made for. There are some really hard conversations and decisions that you all need to make. It all kind of came together. The realization of all of this stuff came to the board and finance within the last 3 months. And it was shared with you pretty quickly. The budget meeting that y'all had a month ago? Roughly. Right, so a month ago, roughly. Actually, people looked at it, and it was new to you, so I know that it didn't go all the way in. And then within the last couple of, and then in a couple of weeks, people went, oh, wait, what? And so this is now all of you together figuring out what to do. And, these are really unprecedented times. I really do think that part of the reason that things are falling off in terms of people completing their pledges or increasing their pledges has to do with the financial situation right now, which is, since January 20th has gotten really wonky. And really there was no necessarily predicting it. There's no predicting it going forward. I mean, anyway. So you all have some really serious things to think about, and what is going to happen, and hard decisions to make, because the budget you currently have been able to basically fund up until the last couple of years is not sustainable. And so what are you going to do? I'm not saying we, because I'm not going to be here to help you with it, but it's not just the board leadership, it's everybody. And yes, you're coming to an annual meeting where there are, this big scary thing confronting, and I don't think, and so Ruth, your question, when is there going to be a balanced budget? Well, never. But a budget that is unbalanced by, 2, 3, 10% even, is something that you can figure out together, right? So not a totally balanced budget won't happen, like ever. That's not a goal necessarily. But a sustainable budget is, and this one isn't sustainable.
Can I, my question, I don't think it got it, or maybe I'm not hearing it right, but so do we figure we're going to get 100% of the pledges? Because, no. We don't, what,
You know,
I don't know.
what do you do? So answer that.
So to kind of repeat what Reverend Dana said, this has been something that's transpired primarily over the last couple of years, where we've looked at pledges and said, if you turn in a pledge card, the expectation is you would make that pledge.
Not really, because our experience has been otherwise.
That's only in the last couple of years that we're realizing that, Bob, and now
Okay.
we're in the position we're in. I can't, what do you want us to do?
Take only a % of the pledges, because that's what.
Okay,
you
so
know.
if I did that on the proposed budget, and I cut 10% out of the pledge number there, that 111 now becomes a much bigger number.
Huh?
Yeah,
What's the 111? I'm not.
111,952 is the negative in this budget. Brian, can you go back 2
Yeah,
slides?
it would become a, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you would cut some of the expenses, so,
And
obviously.
And this is what we're going to be looking at, and then over the next 3 or 4 months, is what expenses do we have? How can we cut those? Where do we want, and this is not me, this is
No.
not Gina, this is us.
It's us.
Okay, that's us. And there will be listening sessions where we want to hear your feedback on what you want to do. This is your money. How do you want to spend it? That's what we need to understand. I think, let's go with David. He had his hand up.
That's all right.
His was up before Bob had the mic.
I'm going to step this way because I want to talk to the congregation and to the leadership at the same time. This is not a new problem. We faced this at the same time that we needed an interim minister. 9 years ago, 10 years ago. We were in the same situation. The big picture is whether we get into the weeds of the budget or not is not the issue. The issue is, Houston, we've got a problem here, and we need to solve it calmly, as the astronauts and the crew in 1970 did on Apollo 13. We need to not be at each other's throats. We need to not be in the weeds of a specific budget. 3 of us who were startled by the $111,000 deficit are people who worked on the budgets during that time period. There are board members who worked, at least one board member here, who was here the first meeting when we met with Reverend Ed Brock during that time period. Carolyn Briggs was here. Was there another board member who's here today? And Brian Buck, and Jim,
Waldron, yeah.
and David Frank. And the first meeting he had with us, I spoke up. He called us into the minister's office and said, "What do you want from us during the time that I am your minister?" And I answered, "We want our financial position in such a shape that our new settled minister does not have to worry about finances for the first 2 years of service." Is that correct, Carolyn? Yes, it is. And he did that. And he didn't do it perfectly, but we got our resources and our reserves and our credits and our expenses balanced. We used a number of things, and I won't go into that now because we're not going to do the same thing again. I was going to start and make prepared recommendations because Brian Buck and David Hinkle and I thought we needed to respond to the size of this deficit because we will lose our resources within 2 to 3 years that we have for operating the church. And there are tough decisions if we are going to balance the budget. And they involve personnel because the highest percentage of our expenses have to do with personnel, the number of hours that they work, and the level of skill that they have. And those are hard choices, and your leadership needs to hear what you think about those choices before they can come up with your budget. And in each group, when you begin to make a cut, there are going to be people who are upset because we belong in different pockets of the church that are our pocket, our thing. That thing we will fight for. And there is not enough money for everything that we want to continue doing. And who wants to decide between music, religious education, the level of skill of the minister that we hire coming in? No one wants to make those choices, but they are your choices. They are the choices you may need to make for the times that we're going to live through, I don't know, let's say 2 to 5 years. And any one of them would upset someone, and some people in the audience would say something, as started to happen here. And we went through this 10 years ago, and we made a big mistake. We put, and I suggested this, let's put 2 microphones, 1, 2. And those who want to pass today's budget, talk here. Those who want to pass today's budget, talk here. And that started, and it took Brian Buck about, that started, and it took Brian Buck about 4 minutes to decide that is a disaster. We were in each other's face. We were upset, angry, argumentative about yes or no. Yes or no. You have 2 choices. We are a family. We love each other. We have to come together, and our leadership can't solve this by themselves. They must hear from you. Not all, we can't do it in a half hour today. We cannot do it. We need, I don't know how many, 4 sessions. Maybe we need 1 in Camarillo, one in Oxnard, and 1 here, where the cadres of our members are, where they can hear from you. If you had to cut this versus this versus this, and then they can come back with something and say, these are the results of what we learned from you. That's my answer. If there's any questions specific for me, I'll answer it, and then I'll give the microphone up.
I know, but I'm so. Thank you, David. And while you were speaking, I found the thing that I was going to share, and then I'm going to just sit down because this is yours, not mine. But from a colleague was talking about we're all Unitarian Universalist congregations are facing some version of this, and beyond us too. It's just been tough. We are in an international moment where huge forces are impacting organizations, communities, families, and individuals in powerful ways. Challenges are likely to become the norm rather than the exception. Thank you, David, and all, and Brian and Carolyn and all the people who were here 10 years ago, because we did not have to worry about finances for the first 4 to 5 years of my ministry with you. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. And then, some of the forces are things like a pandemic. Okay. Challenges are likely to become the norm rather than the exception. They are no one's fault. So we can either allow them to fracture us or to bring us together. Everyone here is passionate about this community for all kinds of reasons. And you want to have a strong community that you can rely on, that, going forward. So come together. Yeah, we were joking in the board finance meetings. This is the come to Buddha, come to Jesus moment, right? The Buddha talked a lot about generosity too. So it's not just come to Jesus, it's come to, but it's a moment to really come together. And I'm going to go be quiet. David, you said it perfectly. I did just want to share that. And Susan is next, and then I'll let you.
All right. Yeah, the musical community here, people we've asked to come together to prepare our summer programs. And so we've got musicians and singers who are interested in doing that. And I'm not sure exactly when we're going to meet, some Wednesday soon. Anyway, because the musical community is coming together, I wonder if it would be helpful for us to know like, what happens if we didn't have a music director and we had someone playing the piano? How, and we as a musical community put together the music for the services, how much would that save us?
I don't know.
Would that be a likely thing that we could
It-
do? Would that benefit
It
the
could,
congregation?
it could be a savings. We would also have to up the budgetary funds for paying an accompanist on Sundays. It's not going to equal what we were paying Carolyn.
Right.
Even if we were to hire somebody, Carolyn was getting 20 hours and she was a music director and very skilled. Assuming we look at this and it's like, well, we need somebody, but maybe 10 hours. Or maybe just we do want an accompanist for a year. That's an option. That's what I would like to look at over the next summer, over this summer, to come back in fall and say, okay, we have some numbers. Because the chart, I asked for that. Numbers are not my friends. I look at them at the meetings, I can see them, and then they're gone. So that is something we need to look at.
So it would be beneficial then, when we come together, to
Yes.
actually, for those of us in the music community, to talk about that
Oh yeah, we want to
possibility.
hear from as many people as we
Okay.
can
All right.
for something like this.
Okay.
I think
Thank
Brian
you. Yes, thank you.
Buck was next. Ian, oh, I'm sorry, Diane, and then Julie.
As I'm sitting here trying to figure out how much I can increase my pledge, I have probably a naive idea, but, you know, the cost of the religious education director is almost equal to our deficit. And I'm wondering, just like Susan said, there's some very devoted, long-time people who work with the children and have for years. And I'm wondering how much thought has been put to either decreasing religious education or doing away with it.
I think with the budget conversations, a lot of things are on the table. Currently, the RE is the most understaffed volunteer-wise that I have ever seen it. We have 2 consistent volunteers who have been doing it for years.
Okay.
And currently 3, but currently right now, it's just a couple people. We don't have a lot of kids. We're not going to have a lot of kids in the future unless we have a space for them too. That's,
Okay,
I won't
thank you.
editorialize anymore on that because I have feelings.
Who is next on this?
Brian,
Julie and then Ian, okay.
okay, thank you.
Gina, what's the number that you have there for what the savings are that you're proposing by cutting back on the music program? What's it, have you got a number there?
No,
Okay.
currently, what we did for this budget to present something in time was we took Carolyn's salary, which was, and benefits, which was almost 40 grand, about that. And then rather than, that was a full year, we assumed we were not going to have a music person for a full year, maybe 9 months. So it came out to like 36,000, but that's also not increasing the money that we would need for somebody to do accompanist on Sundays. So it's less than 36.
Okay.
That doesn't get us to 0 on our deficit.
Okay, well, we've already
It's
got
a
a
chunk.
deficit, but I propose we put the music money back in. And there's a number of reasons for that. We all know that how easy it is to cut art and music in the schools as being inessential. Are they? I think that it's really important to have the very, very best music program in a congregation and to have it run by a really good music director who oversees the quality of things, because people can get up and say, sure, I'll sing, but should they, you know? And we've got open mic night, you know? Really, for the service, we need a professional level, and here's the reason why. It brings in money. When people come to visit and they hear great music, it's one of the things that they take out with them that tends to bring them back, and I've seen this in action. It's also true that when musicians come to a congregation, they judge the music very seriously, and they don't come back if they don't judge it very well.
Well,
I'd just like to finish. I think it brings in people. I know it does. And also, our people go home lifted up by the service, and the music is a really important part of that. And people don't always realize what the effect was the music had on them. But really, just don't cut the music. And I will certainly help in any way that I can to try and raise, to try and increase money to help pay for that. Thank you.
thanks for your comments, Julie. If we, okay. It's Zoom. It's Zoom.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm getting excited. We cannot solve this today. We have to trust that our leaders will do what they say and listen to what you have to say in the next 3 months. We cannot amend this budget or say we should do this or that. We need to give them the power to bring us something to work with and to hear what we have to say.
Thank you. That was what I was going to say. We would have like a 6-hour meeting here, and I'm not up for that today if we try to solve this today. Thank you for your comments, Julie. I appreciate them.
David talked, I'm going to get emotional, okay? Because I'm channeling what happened 10 years ago. It was near the end of the meeting, and I was the vice president of the church at that time. And it had devolved into, as David described, we had a pro and we had a con, and we had all these different kinds of things going on. And I was so nervous, I said, we're not going to do it this way. And I took a chair, and for those of you who were here, I set it down in the middle, and I sat down in the chair. Because that's what it's about. It's about all of us working together. It's not about us being opposed to each other. Now, I can tell you from a business point of view, because I happen to be a pretty good business person, that you go and you say to yourself, and we're going to get meetings. I understand we are all going to get specific meetings where we are all going to get into the weeds and argue and vote for this or, you know, express your own point of view. But in terms of running a church, there are absolutely two people you have to have. You have to have a minister, and you have to have an administrator. You've got to have those two. So if that's your base to start with, everything else becomes an extra. And everything else, for those who remember being at the Terry House, we did have a paid RE person at that time, but not very much. And we had a very vibrant RE committee. We had a lot of volunteers. Now, I tend to think of this church as being a really good volunteering church. It's exceptional. But that's what it's going to come back to, where we're going to have to take a period of time, I think, contract. I said it to somebody. George Washington didn't ever win a battle. He won because he retreated. And just because you go back a little bit doesn't mean you aren't retrenching to get organized to go forward. Because if we want to look attractive to a new minister, we have to solve this before we go down that road too much. I'm talking about a new settled minister, not a contract minister. And if you look at all the advantages that we have, this should be simple to solve. It's just you've got to look at your particular sacred cow, because that's what some of these things are. They're sacred cows. You don't want to give it up. David spoke to it quite eloquently. You may not have to give it up, but it's going to have to change. And so take a good hard look at that, because it's about us. It's not about shaming. It's not about any of that kind of stuff. It's about a moment in time that other congregations have already suffered through, and now it's our turn. And we are a great congregation.
There's been lots of hands. Carolyn, Ian, Jim, Yukio, you've had your hand up for a while. Sorry. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I don't want to be here and talking to you right now. I want to go home. But before we do that, I do want to say that we have a lot of things that we can talk about. We have a lot of things to discuss. I hear people already in this room coming up with ideas of how we could change things, how things could be different. That's good. Hold those thoughts. Go home. Take notes. Don't forget your good points, because there's going to be many, many opportunities for us to talk among ourselves and work something out and make a plan. And because I'm getting older and my memory is getting poor, I forgot the rest of what I wanted to say. Oh. We either pass this budget here today, or we don't, or we continue with the budget that we have now. That's what our bylaws say. That's what we get to do. We don't get to change this budget here today in this meeting.
Thank you. Right here.
Hey, this is just a simple thing, but if you took the 111 right now and everybody in the church, how much would everybody have to come up with if they wrote a check today? You probably already figured that out, but what's the number? Does it make any sense?
Are you asking what it would take to close the budget here
Yeah, if
today?
everybody wrote a check today for their amount, how much would that be?
I don't know. Should we frisk you all on the way out?
No, you must have figured that number out.
Yeah. I don't know.
Can't hear you if
Don't
you're
ask
not
me
on a mic.
numbers. Yeah. Up here, question? While he works on that, can we have another comment? He's been very patient. $520. One-time payment, $520. But that's everybody in the pledging unit or everybody here? Pledging units, not everybody here.
Okay, while we are considering that part, I want to address two issues that were addressed. The first one, well, no,
Closer?
and the basic, and
Can
the
you move it a little closer? I'm having trouble.
okay, so the basic issue that we need is more people paying more money. Okay. We celebrated when we mentioned at the beginning that there are 21 new members. 21 new members. I don't know arithmetic anymore, but think of if we could double that or triple that in 1 year. How much would that give us? And I'm not saying we should now sit down and figure that out. It's just a rhetorical point. The point being, we need to work on expanding the congregation in order to expand our budget. And there are two things that are essential that everybody knows who's looked at the history of religious institutions in the Western world, at least. One of them is music. And if you want me to talk about how music, okay, no. I won't. But certainly beginning in the 16th century, the use of music inside the church divided Christianity fundamentally. So I won't give you any more talk, but you know who is still having a lot of music performed by the congregations enthusiastically. And that takes an involved director, music director, who understands the congregation and is willing to interact constantly. Okay, that's one set. The other one is look at our age. I'm not talking about myself alone. We need to expand religious education rather than cut it. Because if we don't bring in the young, what are we going to be looking at? Well, we won't even have anybody to attend our funerals. And I'm not talking about the little ones. We see, I love the little ones. That's what brought me into the church, seeing the 7 or 8 years ago, when I saw the little ones out there in front. I'm talking about what happens to the kids that are just about to bridge, and what happens to them after bridging. Where are they in our congregation? So back to the bottom line, we need to increase our congregation. And in my mind, there are two things that have been discussed as possibly being too expensive: religious education and music. In my mind, they're essential and they are not too expensive.
Thank you. I think, Jim, did you still have a? Okay, I don't. Anyone else who? Yukio
I'm
and
gonna
Dawn.
pull a David here and stand so I can talk to everybody. I had my hand up for quite a while earlier, and then my friend David Smith got up and said what I wanted to say, which is we're not going to negotiate how we balance the budget at this meeting. What I heard our leadership put forward is that there's going to be an organized process for taking a careful look. And that doesn't mean whisper campaigns either. That means an organized process. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Yukio? Or
Yukio, Dawn, and Celia.
where's Yukio? I can't.
Yukio.
There you are.
Yeah, I'm going to stand up here as well. My name is Yukio Okano. I was the board president during the pandemic. I really appreciate the comments that David and Jim and Brian and others have made. We're not going to solve the problem right now. I know we have limited time. We need to go home and think about a lot of this. But I did have a couple of suggestions. One is to do a survey. During the pandemic, you know, we were shut down for a year and a half. It was very hard to communicate with everyone. This is kind of when we became a virtual church. But one of the things that we did was do an online survey to allow everyone in the church to have some input into what was important to them as we went through the process of reopening. So I suggest that whether we pass the budget today or not, that we have an online survey of everyone and try to get everyone's input, and then perhaps have some working groups look at the input, make some recommendations, have other group conversations. It's going to take time, I think, to figure out what our priorities are. I happen to be on the interim minister search team, and I just wanted to comment that it's really important for us to get our finances in order, because we interviewed 3 candidates, all of whom we thought would do well in our setting. All 3 of them raised finances as a question. And we're kind of in between a rock and a hard place. They had questions about what salary they would earn, but also concerns about our deficit budget. So if we're going to have a settled minister down the road who's going to be with us for any period of time, I agree. You know, whatever took place 10 years ago, we need to do our part to have stable finances for whoever that person may be. So even an interim minister candidate is raising questions about where we're at. So we are going to have to make some hard decisions. We all have our opinions. We need to be together in working out whatever plan that is.
Let's do Celia and then Dawn. And do we have any questions from Zoom, Brian?
Not as of this time.
Thank you.
I've been a member of this church for 35 years. I know that because I brought my daughter here when she was a month old to this church. When we came here, we didn't have a religious education program. We had parents who were doing the religious education for our students. I still have a group we call UU Moms, because we know these kids and we were connected. One of them is in Texas now, you know, but we were so connected because we worked together with our kids. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a religious education director. Lily is fabulous. It's what we need. But what I'm saying is that as we go forward, we need to be able to maybe look and tweak and see, you know, maybe where can we cut? We also didn't have a music director when I first came to this church. We grew to have a musical director. A music director is fabulous. Music is so important to this church. And we may need to look at how we can tweak this. And I think that we all need to be willing to look and see how we can keep this church going before we all get exactly what it is that we love so much. Because we're a family, and we need to do things together as a family. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Don?
Thank you. I'm not speaking for myself. My job as secretary of the board is to represent absentee, and one of our absentee members, or one of our members who are absent and couldn't be here, has a statement. This is from Cappy Paulson. I can't support being in the red. I won't be present to hear the discussion of how the budget deficit will be addressed, so I'm voting no to show my concern for the future stability of church finances. I appreciate the work of the Finance Committee, trust they will continue to faithfully monitor the cash flow needs of the church, operations, and longevity of the legacy funds. Our safety net is receding too quickly and is extremely difficult to rebuild once gone. That was Cappy Paulson.
Thank you. Do you want to give it back here? So if we have any other questions. And the speed of which things are happening, the uncertainty, the unknown, is why we've decided to put it as a provisional budget and revisit it in the fall. That's exactly why.
Yeah,
David.
I had a question.
Yes.
What am I voting on? Am I voting on?
I haven't heard a motion yet, but.
Well, wait a minute,
Okay.
Is the proposal before us to vote on this budget as a provisional budget contingent upon future discussion with the congregation? Is that what I'm voting on?
That's what we would like to put forward.
it's a
But I
provisional-
have a provisional budget to be looked at and revisited in the fall, October, not open-ended
Can I
forever.
make that motion now?
Yeah,
Or is
I
it
have
too
not heard
soon?
a motion from the floor. That's what
Maybe there are more questions, I don't know.
the motion's out of order, because I knew there was going to be a lot of questions. So if we have a motion, I'd be willing to entertain it. Jim?
If I understand the bylaws correctly, we can only vote on what went out in the packet. So naming it a provisional budget in the motion did not go out in the packet. If we are people of goodwill and we understand the intention, that we're going to take a look at and revisit the budget that we pass if we pass it, that's a different thing.
Yeah. I trust his interpretation on the bylaws.
So can I ask a clarification? So we're going to propose voting on this operating expense budget. Should we, during the year, decide that we have ways that we need to change this budget? Can we change it? And what is the process for changing the budget we vote on today?
A congregational meeting.
So
Would-
this is not locked into stone for the whole year with no change.
Even
We can
if,
make a change.
even if we didn't want to come back to it for a congregational vote in a meeting at a later time, it would still not be locked in stone because it's a plan.
Just wanted to clarify that.
The budget's always a plan. What we budgeted last year, we spent less than what we budgeted. We took in less than what we budgeted. Yes, Jim.
We have a rule that says the board cannot spend more than a certain amount above what we have passed. We have no rule that says they have to spend that much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, David?
In spite of all the deficit, one of our greatest assets is this building. We don't have a mortgage, thanks to people in the past who have paid. We are in a good position to make changes. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
No, but I wanted to underscore what David said. If you look at our balance sheet right now, our balance sheet is like $3.5 million, and that includes this building. So David's point is well taken. We're not in dire straits right now. But if we don't look at how we're spending our money more carefully, we could be. But even at that, the balance sheet is pretty strong.
My shoe's got about an hour left in them. Love to hear a motion. Brian. Get him a mic, please.
You know, whatever the correct language is, I wish to call the motion to vote on this budget.
Thank you. We have
I second the motion.
Gadrian seconds. I know we went out of order. I knew there would be a lot of questions. Do we have any other comments or questions? Let's take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Please keep your hands raised.
Six out of six.
In the back.
Sorry.
All in favor, we're in
Yeah,
unanimous.
six, yeah, unanimous on the Zoom.
Okay. Do you have your count here? And then the Zoomers and 6. And absentee is? Okay. All those opposed? 1. Do we have a vote on Zoomers opposed? A count?
No.
No? Oh, they were unanimous. Sorry, I didn't pick up on that. And then when absentee opposed? Absentee opposed. 3. Okay. Any abstentions? 2. Julie, did you vote opposed? You can't vote opposed and abstain at the same time. 2 abstain. Zoom was done. Any abstentions from the absentees?
Nope.
So our total? Oh. No. Do we have a majority? Okay. The motion passes. Thank you. Our work is not done. It is just beginning. Neil, you have a question, comment? Can you, Neil, get the microphone?
As we move forward in the next few months, I would like to have a detailed breakdown of what our expenses are. And I think that would be valuable to all of us to understand what we're paying for and what, anyway, just that. I request that.
It's supposed, yeah. Joe, microphone.
Yeah, now, are you asking for existing budget or the new budget? By broken down by detail? We can do that. Correct. As we're voting on right now, as we just, we voted in, yes. Sure. Yeah, we can get that out in an email, for sure. Now, it's going to be a spreadsheet, so that's the best I can do, okay?
So now we have our recognition of outgoing elected representatives. Can I have Carolyn Briggs come up for that?
Remember, take all those good ideas you're thinking about, write them down, and be prepared to discuss them over the summer. At this part of our agenda, we recognize outgoing elected representatives of leadership. And although Maricela is unable to be present today, I want to say on behalf of the Leadership Development Committee, of which I serve, and I am standing in for our chair, Gary Zinnick, today. I thank her for her willingness to serve on the Board of Trustees. And a gift acknowledging her service will be presented by our chair, Gary Zinnick, at their mutual convenience in the future here. I also want to take this moment to remember Dennis Charles for his long and faithful service to this congregation, most recently as a member of the Endowment and Memorial Fund committees. He will be missed. And we are very privileged that Ron Dallas has agreed to succeed Dennis in this role. Ron, too, has a long history in UU congregational leadership roles, and we are blessed by his willingness to serve. And now let me speak a moment to the installation of incoming elected representatives. I would like to speak to it before we elect them. And that is, Gina Norstedt is a wonder woman. However, she did not serve in 2 positions on the Board of Trustees in 2024. She served as president, and to our embarrassment, we failed to acknowledge in the printed materials that Erin Merrill served out the 2nd year of Gina's term when Gina assumed the role of president. So Erin is now agreed to stand for her own new 2-year term, and I wanted to make sure we recognize that. And the other recognition that I wanted to make is that on the Leadership Development Committee, our chair is Gary Zinnick, I am a member, and Yukio is referenced as being a 2024 incumbent. And while we love Yukio and we ask him to help us out whenever we need help, he did step away from that position in June of 2023. That doesn't mean we haven't stopped talking to him. And Zena Young has been serving in that capacity and is up as the 2025 nominee. So I wanted to make those clarifications for you in case there were any questions. And that, I believe, takes care of my remarks. Thank you.
So we have a slate of nominees to elect. We typically do it all at once. Looking for a motion. Yes. Yes, a motion to vote on the slate.
To approve.
To approve the slate of nominees put forth by the Leadership Development Team. Okay, Ruth, did you first it, Ruth? Oh,
Ruth made the motion.
okay. We have multiple seconds going on, so. All right. Any discussion, questions, comments? All right.
Anyone online? Anyone online with questions?
Anyone on Zoom with questions?
No questions, but the result is, again,
Thank you.
unanimous, 6.
So we have, looking it up here, we would be electing Rob March for Vice President, Don Henniger for his 2nd term as Secretary, Kathy Swift for Trustee, and Erin Merrill for her 2nd term, beginning of her 2nd term for Trustee.
She's still in her first year.
We're continuing. Joe Osborne and President are continuing, so we're not up for election. As well as Gudrun, she's continuing her 2nd year as trustee of a term. Everyone on the nominating committee is continuing, so they are not up for election. For the Endowment and Memorial Fund, we have Ron Dallas, Cappy Paulson, and Cheryl Gilbert. So that is our slate of nominees we will be voting on. I'm sorry, I did not read them before. Do you still make a motion, Ruth? You still second it? Okay. All those in favor? On Zoom, all those are, excuse me, Zoom already voted. Okay. Okay. All those opposed? Crickets? Any abstentions? Cricket. It looks to me like the motion passed. Thank you.
Congratulations.
It doesn't see. Yes, David.
Need a microphone.
Sorry.
Carolyn Briggs made comment
Yes.
about Gina Young. Did we vote her in on the?
She's
leadership?
continuing.
Okay.
And the paperwork, it says
It says
Yukio
Yukio. It should have
Okano.
said- So it's Xenia continuing. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Zena is masquerading as Yukio in that part, or vice versa. I'm not sure which. So that was. Sorry, getting back to where I need to be. Thank you for your patience. So now we had the recognition of the outgoing, installation of incoming elected representatives. Reverend Dana, do you do that? The installation of incoming elected representatives. Cool.
Wait a minute. Who's here that is?
Rob?
Get up here.
Aaron?
Anybody else?
Let me make sure I check my list. Who's incoming, and they're not here. Kathy Swift, is she still here? Okay.
Up here.
Dawn. Dawn is also elected as a new term.
No, that's not how I command my dogs. That's how I commanded my third graders. I'm leaving y'all, and certain of the filters are starting to get less filtered. You are agreeing. Are you elected?
No.
Did you just get reelected?
No.
Joe,
No,
you
sit down.
you sit down. I know. So you have agreed to serve this congregation, and that agreement, that willingness to serve, has been affirmed by the members here gathered. Thank you for your generosity, for your care and your commitment, your loyalty to the institution of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura and to our larger movement in our Association of Congregations. It is, you serve among your friends and among people who have become, in many ways, a chosen family. Thank you for all of it and for the willingness and also stepping in times that are, wow, challenging. And so with that, I ask you, I'll ask you each individually, are you still willing to serve, Rob March? Yes. Aaron Merrill, are you still willing to serve this congregation? Donald Henniger, are you still willing to serve this congregation?
Absolutely.
And having been affirmed by your fellow members, unanimously affirmed by your fellow members, and having restated your commitment to serving in this way, you are now installed. So I also have some closing words for you, and these are among my favorite Benedictine words. And the last time I will say these to you. In these times, in this context, in this moment, and in this world. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone, ever. And you are held by a love that you create and help make manifest in the world, and that serves you and that you serve. Go forth, you lovely, lovely human community, and be the church.
Thank you. Thank you all for spending what I'm sure was a miserable day here with us. There was nothing else out there to do. This is the place to be. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. The meeting is adjourned.